Dennis, allow me to take us back a little bit. You know, most of the times, if you have no good understanding of your history, you are bound to make the same mistakes, and you are bound not to understand your destination. And today being Jamhuri Day is a very significant day to take a moment just to reflect on where we are coming from, where we are, and most importantly, where we intend to go. Two things come out very strongly. One, June has talked about the Kenyan population and also what I proposed in terms of getting more Kenyans involved in tourism. We are now talking about the component of infrastructure and building the numbers. But there are certain things that we must never be, or we can never run away from. About a year after attaining full independence, that was in 1965, there is a paper that was developed called the Sessional Paper number 10 of 1965. In fact, it came to be referred to as the Kenyan Economy Bible. This paper was presented by the late Tom Mboya, and it was built by top economists, including the late Barack Obama Sr. And one of the key things, or the three pillars around this particular sessional paper, was to eradicate poverty, ignorance, and disease. Now, in the context we have today, as June was indicating, like when you look at the Kenyan population in excess of 50 million, unfortunately, we have more than half of the country's population still struggling with acute poverty. And those are very critical players or factors that affect our tourism in this sense. As a nation, we haven't done much in terms of enhancing the individual living standards of the citizenry. And I think the lady at Nyayo Stadium, Mofire, brought this out, especially currently, the weight of the cost of living. What this translates to, I want to believe that Peter here, or June here, and even you, Dennis, and most of the people that we are sitting in this room today, out of either some economic advantage or out of economic ability, you have been able to establish or build networks that go beyond this country. One of the key factors that drives tourism is a citizenry that is able to interact or engage and even trade beyond the borders. I have a lot of friends who visit this country, not as tourists, but because perhaps there is a project or an assignment or something that we are doing together because of perhaps my economic placement. When you look at more than half of the population of this country, people who are struggling even to put a meal on the table, they do not enjoy that advantage to be able to interact or trade or do business with people beyond the borders. So my thinking would be to emphasize on achieving or attaining what we promised ourselves at independence, to be able to get a citizenry involved in building these numbers. Because I have quite a number of visitors who have come to this country purely out of my own invitation and personal marketing of the country, and that attracts them. It is not because it is coming from KTB or the government or because of their own independent research. So I would imagine the impact that would have if we are able to focus more on attaining this, the economic independence of the citizens of this country. To me, that is extremely important. There is a damper to the excitement about the tourism products or the circuits that we have. Recently, there was a terminology that was coined about slum tourism, because we have huge populations of this country, especially in our urban areas, who live in extremely deplorable conditions. And there are people who have taken advantage of that situation, either to attract donor funding or to attract support. It's not a bad thing if it is genuinely intentioned or directed towards improving the living standards of these people. But most of the times you find the concept has been exploitive. In terms of people who are looking to secure funding to better or improve their own lives at the expense of these communities. So my challenge would be for people to, especially the government, after 6 decades, we shouldn't be having cases of, or even Kenyans living in the kinds of conditions we are seeing, or Kenyans unable to feed themselves, because we have had very fancy discussions about food security, for example. The lady Mofire talked about that because we have diverted our attention to populist pronouncements at the expense of tangible action on the ground directed towards the actual improvement of the economies and the livelihoods of ordinary Kenyans. And I think there's no necessity to overemphasize that, because even when you look at the recent activities from last year, especially the Gen Z uprising, and even this year, these are factors that affect our tourism massively. When Kenya appears on international media banning, and especially young people agitated because there are no economic opportunities, that sends the wrong signal to the international communities, or even our neighbors, maybe our fellow Tanzanians or Ugandans or Rwandans who would like to visit this country. So my take would be, and this is something I believe the government should be focusing to address today, we must go beyond the lip service and the fancy discussions or the fancy pronouncements and outline tangible, practical roadmaps that can turn around this economy. Agriculture is a critical sector that should be attracting tourism. When I was a young boy, traveling from Nairobi towards either Nakuru or Eldoret or Kitale, you could see pyrethrum on the lining up the highways. You don't see that anymore. We have been talking about enhancing irrigation. Like, if we were serious, the Galana Kulalu project should be something that is attracting people who would like to enhance agriculture in their countries. That is in terms of diversifying the products we are talking about. But I'll give you a specific example. And June, this is something you can check out on your way to Eldoret. Between Ngata and Salga on the Nakuru Eldoret highway, there is a place called Sobea. Sobea, there is a junction that turns to the left, goes all the way to Njoro. Yeah. That was a beautiful farmland that used to grow mostly wheat and probably maize. A few years ago, I had the privilege of using that road. One, it is an abandoned road, yet it is a very prime economic region. But what devastated me was to see large tracts of that land that have been converted from agricultural land, and people subdivided that into this plot Maguta thing. It's something that you can check out. Yeah. And that, to me, one, affects the economy of this country, because we cannot just be talking about houses when we are not even able to feed ourselves. The world population has crossed the 8 billion mark, and many countries are not able to produce their food. It is saddening that you find even Saudi Arabia is able to produce more food than Kenya, yet it is a desert. So my sum up on that would be, there is need now to focus more on the local citizens and improving the livelihoods of the ordinary citizens so that we can all participate.